大家好 ，Good morning, everyone. Yeah. 首先感谢各位来参会的嘉宾。Yeah, thank you all for coming. And it's the first time we are having the conference in a warehouse. This but in the future we plan to have the conference at this location every year. And so. It's our first experiment, and I want to thank my team for doing such a wonderful job, making this warehouse into a very pleasant place to have the meeting. So I want to, yeah, where is, oops, how do you, okay. Yeah, actually, I'm following a presentation about the macroeconomy and the Trump policy and so on. But I thought to start my presentation with just a little bit of my thinking on what Trump policy is and why it's happening. So I don't know if you guys have read a book called The Fourth Turning. It's an old book written in 1997. And my partner Patrick recommended me to read it a few years ago. I read it and I thought it's very profound in terms of the American, the cycle of history about the American development. And it basically says there are 4 cycles in the first turning, which is spring. It's like the season. So everything is booming. And the second turning is awakening. And the third turning is fall. And then fourth turning is winter. And roughly speaking, the philosophy is that when what people get educated in the 20s influence what their policy is when they are in the political leadership. So normally the political leadership starts at 60 years old. So what you have learned, like your youth when you are growing up, will influence what policy you put into the when you are in charge of the country. And the book says around 20 years per period. So you have around 80 years. So first turning 20 years is the spring, like you are getting educated. And then by the time you actually managing the country, you are in the fourth turning. So 80 years. So actually, the book says we would have been in this crisis period already for 20 years. We should come out of it. But I think we underestimate the longevity growth. So now we have 80 years old president. So we are not out of the crisis mode yet, but we are still in it. Hopefully, we will come out of it soon. So the crisis mode is basically when individual challenges the institution, which we have seen in the like Brexit in Europe, and now what we are seeing the Trump policies in the US, which is about reorganize institutions that basically individual against the institution. And so there will be new institution coming, and then we go into the spring again. And so I do actually believe, quite optimistic, that it's a cycle, so we will get to see the spring again. So I want to start with that. We CM Venture also invest in the US and Europe as well as China, although we invest in 70% in China, 30% abroad. For the US right now, it's really AI-centric opportunity. So we believe tariff alone is not likely to bring most manufacturing back because you need to have industrial policies. And with so much uncertainty in terms of Trump is only going to be 4 years president, and there's a lot of uncertainty of what happens next and so on. So it deters investment. So we don't think it's going to bring most manufacturing back. But the only certainty, there are certainties though, that's where people are investing. A is the higher energy demand driven by reindustrialization and AI data center needs. So we will hear later from Anthony, who will kindly share with the US AI plus clean tech and AI plus data center. There is a really high demand in terms of energy coming from data center. And because US has 3,000 utilities instead of 3 or 4, so it's very difficult to actually get power into where you need it easily. So that's one. And the second one is higher demand for minerals and critical materials. So this independence of minerals and critical materials is a very big topic in the US. And then AI is central for growth. So basically for VC investments, like in energy generation, there's a lot of activity in geothermal, nuclear. We are looking at grid optimization, on-site energy generation, and we're looking at the materials in terms of minerals and critical materials in materials and tech in rare earth discovery and processing. So in fact, I think the challenge for US to regain materials and metal is not in discovering those material and metal, rather than in the processing and extraction, which there's a lot of environmental regulations that needs to be considered. And then in semiconductors, so materials and packaging and fab, so chip design, new packaging technology, high density computing, and so on. So one thing that significantly changed since Trump come on board or became president is, in fact, everything else disappeared almost. I feel like in the US today, if you are not AI, literally you cannot raise money. Everything needs to be AI-centric. So the clean tech, if you are like carbon capture or carbon utilization, and so it's impossible to raise money in the US market today. So everything is AI-centric. So you have, for data center, investment in power and energy. In machines, you have investment in robotics that is with AI embedded. And in semiconductor, you have materials and equipment, because semiconductor is very critical for AI chips. And then software, so which is very focused on AI-enabled vertical application. So most of those applications are in offices and consumer. We are investing in industrial. So we actually have 2 portfolio companies in the US that are addressing the trend. One is C-Train, which is AI for materials startup that we invested earlier this year. And one is Liquidex, which we invested several years ago, but is now top 10 semiconductor manufacturing company in the US. It provides a critical key enabling material for glass substrate semiconductor packaging. So it's the only company in the world that can allow semiconductor packaging on glass substrate with liquid chemistry. So that's why it's named called Liquidex. Yeah. So coming to and then we have a Chinese company called Quantec, which is optical interconnect, and their main market is to supply the US data center build. So this is based in Shanghai, but the main market is the US. So we have basically 3 portfolio companies addressing the US AI-centric investment theme. So it's interesting, I was watching some news yesterday. Basically, US sort of politically it's in a crisis or turmoil, but stock market does very well because the tech, basically AI is viewed as such a revolutionary industrial revolutions comparable to when the cloud came about. So AI is going to create a lot of industrial value, and that's why the US stock market is still booming in this regard. Now, coming to China, we believe there's, first of all, because of the current environment, I believe there is a Chinese government, first of all, need to stimulate consumer demand. And we do see that happening in the market. So first of all, green and biochemistry in CPG goods, so is an opportunity. So we have a PepsiCo later, have a PepsiCo accelerator presentation. And we have our own company, Econic, here that supplies green surfactant to CPG industry, to like Unilever. So we, unlike oil and gas company, which immediately went back to oil and gas, we believe that most consumer brands companies are still sticking to sustainability, and their manufacturing, a lot is happening in China. So the green and biochemistry is still a topic. And a matter of fact, our Econic is going to come to China for this collaboration with Unilever for the chemistry. And the second is in food. We believe that cold chain, agtech, feed, food preservation, and food safety is an area that has a lot of opportunities in China for the consumer demand. And then consumer-driven health checks, including TCM extracts, new health ingredients, and so on. So one of our investors, LKK, I believe, has a unit, Infinitus, that does very well in TCM extracts. And our other portfolio company, Beaver, who is here, supplies these nanomagnetic beads to a lot of health check. So that's also in that category. And then materials for EV, consumer electronics, and automotive electronics. So in the US and Europe, EV doesn't do well. It's growing much slower than anticipated. But in China, we believe China has all the elements to grow EV continuously. So the materials for EV is a topic. And we have a portfolio company, Zenith Nano, that is entering EV with electrochromic window film, which is a new growth area. And in the second opportunity is manufacturing upgrade. And here we are looking very closely at, first of all, software. We believe the industrial software in China will experience growth because a lot of the industrial software is still foreign brands currently. And so we are looking at the Chinese software for simulation, visualization, supply chain, industrial design, and modeling. So that's the industrial software. And then in the manufacturing, we are looking at machine vision, robotic components, industrial humanoids area. And finally, AI for material discovery, business intelligence, matching supply and demand. This is, we broadly think it's in the manufacturing upgrade sector. So the next one is in energy, fuel, and resources. So first of all, we believe that grid optimization and energy storage system is, we are at the beginning of it. So there is the power electronics, it also goes into that. So ESS, energy storage system, this is a topic that we have been studying for a long time, and we continue to look for opportunities to invest. Second area is in hydrogen utilization. So yeah, for those of you who know CM Venture a little bit, probably know we have a thesis for hydrogen. So we invested in 2017 in Guofu Hydrogen, which is in hydrogen equipment. It went public in Hong Kong last year. Then in 2020, so that solves the problem whether you have hydrogen or not. And then we invested in dynamic hydrogen in 2023, I believe. Yeah, it's about reducing the cost of hydrogen, so PEM hydrolyzer. But 2024, we invested in hydrogen utilization, a US company, CO2 and hydrogen to protein. And that is really addressing the issue of green hydrogen utilization. Because without utilization, the hydrogen industry development will be limited. So hydrogen utilization, we continue to look for opportunities beyond novel nutrients. And yeah. So third is extracting critical minerals and metals from waste. Our government also has planned for deep sea exploration, rare earths and other metal deep processing, AI for alloys and so on. So here we already have investment in AI for developing new alloy. And for the deep processing and extracting from waste, we also have been studying the field. And yeah. And lastly, it's in the super high grade superconductor for the high voltage grid transformer and inspection. So we already have inspection company called SkySys, but we are also looking at the super high voltage power grid that is being developed to transport the energy from our very far west to the east. Yeah. So finally, we have new infrastructure, which is 中文叫新基建, yeah. And we're looking at the data center value chain. Later, we will hear this afternoon from about both US data centers, so Anthony is going to share about US data center, and then we compare and contrast with Chinese data center value chain. So I do believe that it's very different in terms of data center technology between the US and China, and so we are looking at both sides. And microsatellite value chain, 6G value chain, so that's, we already have an investment, like I said, in AI for alloy, and their main application is in microsatellites, and so it's in the satellite value chain, and then the eVTOL value chain, and a new business model for low-altitude economy. We have not invested in any eVTOL company yet, but we are basically studying this whole field of eVTOL and whether there is a good investment opportunity here. So I want to say the China opportunity, I believe, is still manufacturing-centric versus US, it's all AI. Here, AI is just one of the components that is linked to manufacturing. So we have, from CM perspective, we have like 4 companies in the consumer side. Sengong Keji, who is the CEO, is here, is about the laundry pod film, PVA film. Beaver is about consumer healthcare check. Zenith Nano goes critical material for EV. And Econic, our UK company, does green surfactant and so also goes into the consumer goods. And then we have the manufacturing upgrade. So we have eChief, that's in autonomous driving for industrial application. We have NWise, that is taking potato peel from PepsiCo and turning into biogas plant. So yeah. And then we have, in infrastructure, we have SkySys that is doing drone inspection for solar wind. And then we have an InnoAero that is in the microsatellite value chain, a new AI discovered alloy. And then in AI, or I would say manufacturing of for AI, we have compound semiconductor whose diamond heat sink goes into data center cooling chips. So it's at a chip level cooling that compound semiconductor is. So I think I have literally 1 minute, so I want to end with the last quote, which is the pessimist complains about wind, the optimist expects it to change, and the realist adjusts the sails. So I want to say at CM Venture, we are realistic. So basically adjusting sails all the time. So one interesting story is we have invested in a company called Novo Nutrients, which is taking CO2 and hydrogen into protein. Literally, it's impossible to raise money now in the US. So we are now bringing it to China earlier than we expected to actually have the pilot done in China. And that's our illustration of how we have to constantly adjust the sails in this very stormy policy environment. Thank you.